Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. Today I wanted to show you a replay I recently recorded in my Bayern Tier 6 battleship. Now, I don't feature battleship content a whole lot on the channel, and I think the reason for that is because for a little while I haven't felt super confident about my battleship gameplay, but I'm kind of getting the hang of it. Sort of starting to figure out what you kind of need to do in your battleships, even when you are, as we are in this match, not top tier. So the big thing that I want to highlight about this game is I'm going to be playing moderately aggressively here, and that's really the key with battleships is you want to be aggressive but not to the point of suicide. So you'll notice where I am. I'm right up in G7 and I'm pushing in as close as I can get to these two cruisers here, the Kirov and the Nuremberg. And the reason is that I want to use that was a pretty poorly aimed shot there, but I guess I anticipated the Kirov would be making more of an effort to get behind the island. But what I want to really do is two things. The first thing I want to do is draw a little bit of fire away from my friendly cruisers, who are a little bit squishier than I am. And I want to get into kind of like the mid-range with the enemy cruisers, because that's going to give me a pretty enormous ability to really get in their faces and zone them out. So I want to kind of port over a concept from Overwatch called space, which is basically, and I don't have the greatest method of explaining this concept, but the general idea is that the role of your tanks is essentially to create room, create free areas on the map for your DPS heroes to be able to exist safely and do damage. And that's sort of the role of battleships and warships, in a way. The basic idea of, and that's what I mean about getting into the mid-range with cruisers. But basically the idea with battleships is you want to kind of get up to a position where you're being moderately aggressive, and this accomplishes two things. The first thing is it allows our cruisers to be able to take more risks and be more aggressive and be able to really shoot the enemy and influence the battle without worrying about getting shot by the enemy ships, because they're all shooting me. The second thing it does is it allows me to zone out the enemy ships and force them to fall back or risk being killed. Right? So now the Kirov is running away. The Nuremberg didn't run away and got himself killed because of it. And that's the power that being a moderately aggressive battleship has, is it allows you to really punish ships that are too aggressive, and it allows you to create space for your cruisers and your lighter ships to be able to flex around and influence the battle, instead of having to fall back. A lot of times I see battleship players kind of sit in the back and not really do a lot. And the problem that this creates is it means that your cruisers also have to do that, and so they end up ceding strategic positions on the map, and they end up allowing the enemy to basically do what they want. And that's really not ideal. It's not what you want in a team game. It's not what you want to win the game. If you're a battleship, what you should be thinking about doing is being aggressive enough that you're able to really kind of force the enemies to fall back. So because I'm here, because this Gneisenau is here, because this Colorados are here, we were able to kind of force the enemies to fall back from that initial aggressive position they had. And because we're in this kind of pseudo-aggressive position, we're able to punish their cruisers for being too aggressive, right? So like this Miyoko, for example, is getting absolutely wrecked. Not just by me, but, well, there he's wrecked by me, but also by the other ships on our team. And because myself and this Gneisenau are playing aggressive, we're able to force their cruisers to fall back. And you'll notice the other team, part of the reason I wanted to show you this replay is because if you look at what the other team's battleships are doing, they're doing kind of the opposite of what my team's ships are doing. You'll notice their Colorados are kind of hanging back around that island back there. Their Prince Eitel Friedrich is giving us full broadside, but also kind of hanging at the back. And their cruisers have been playing aggressive, and they've been the ones getting shot. Whereas on our team, the battleships are the ones who are the furthest up, and the cruisers are a little further back. And of course, our team has lost no cruisers, and the enemy have lost 4. And all of them have died in that sort of region in front of the enemy battleships. Now, to be very clear, what should you do if you're a cruiser in that situation, right? So let's say I had been on the other team and I was playing a cruiser and my battleships were just kind of chilling in the back. Well, in that situation, you as a cruiser obviously need to think, okay, my battleships aren't doing anything, I need to play accordingly, I need to be passive, right? And that's just the reality of this game. If you're a cruiser and your battleships are playing passive, you are also forced to play passive. But because our battleships are playing aggressive, our cruisers are able to just sort of sit back and just sit in the open ocean and just spam these battleships. And because we're playing aggressive, our cruisers are able to be safe, and because their battleships played passive, their cruisers weren't safe. So right now, I'm kind of wanting to push the tempo a little bit. I want to do more damage. I want to get and kind of force these battleships to fall back. I am only a tier 6 ship, and this is a Colorado, but I don't really care. The way the scoreboard is shaping up, it's looking like we're going to win this pretty overwhelmingly, so I feel safe taking a little more risks to get damage. I am actually reversing here because, again, I don't really want to be right in the enemy's face. I don't want to be too aggressive. I sense that this game has the potential to get me a lot of damage and a pretty high score, and so that's what I really want to achieve. The Svetlana, unfortunately, dies before I can shoot him, but which actually would have given us the Kraken in this game. We're going to end up with 4 kills at the end of it, so that would have been a Kraken if we had killed that guy, but whatever. Krakens are earned, so that's that. But right now, I want to be able to do damage without killing myself. So I'm thinking I want to kind of fight these guys at a sort of mid-range. I want to keep myself angled. You notice that the enemy battleships are giving me a broadside, and I'm giving them pretty much almost bow on. And what that means is that that Colorado, that Queen Elizabeth, aren't able to do that much damage to me, but I'm able to, if I aimed properly, do a lot of damage to them. So now I'm feeling like I want to push up a little bit more. And I noticed that this Queen Elizabeth is kind of just sitting there. Now, I think this guy might be AFK, and you'd think that that means he's not a threat at all. Also, if you want to have a fun time, just this is a little tangent, but have a look at the chat in this game. I think our Gneisen now actually took torpedoes from our Miyoko, and so there's going to be a little spat in the team chat about that, which I think was pretty funny at the time. But anyway, the reason I'm choosing to shoot this Queen Elizabeth is 2 reasons. First of all, even though he's AFK, he's spotting for their team, which means if we kill him, he's not going to be spotting for their team. And 2, it's free damage, and free damage is always nice. Now, the Colorado is actually shooting back at me, but I'm not worried about that. And the reason I'm not worried about that is because I'm giving him my angled armor, which means that unless he gets lucky, he's not going to be doing an enormous amount of damage to me. So I'm just going to focus on the Queen Elizabeth. I don't want this guy to wake up at a bad time and be able to kill us. The danger with AFK opponents is that they wake up. If you ignore them, they might wake up and be able to shoot you from an angle you weren't expecting because you thought they were AFK. So I think it's always good to try and kill AFK ships as fast as possible, because taking the opportunity to take guns out of the fight, even if they're useless right now, they could become not useless later. So we're going to try and kill this guy ASAP. And I forget whether we get the kill on this guy or not. This is my first time watching this replay after recording it, so we'll see what happens. And we are able to pick up the kill. So now this Colorado is turning back in, and I'm actually going to pick the 1v1 with him. It's technically not a 1v1 because that Prince Eitel Friedrich is actually going to shoot at us, but I'm still going to take this fight. So 2 reasons I'm going to take it. First of all, even though I'm a tier lower than him, I have a lot more hit points than he does, and I still have 2 heals. And he does have the Eitel Friedrich flanking me, but at the same time, also if you're looking in the group chat, the Miyoko has now called the battleship a liberal as an insult, which I think is really funny. Anyway, the reason I take this fight is A, I think I can win it even if it was just 1v1, and B, I have a lot of support from the rest of my team, and C, look at how this guy is playing, right? He's giving me his full broadside. And he's been giving me his full broadside pretty much this entire time, so that gives me confidence that he's probably not the best player. I'm pretty sure this guy is an Admiral Nelson, so I think we can probably take him on. And now he is actually turning away, which I think is smart, because in this situation, he really just needs to get out of here. He needs to kite us away, which will maximize the chances of him living while being able to kill one of us. Generally speaking, kiting is a really strong tactic even in a battleship, and especially when you're in this kind of situation where you're running away from a superior number of enemy ships. That was a pretty terrible shot. You really just want to kite them. This is true in cruisers, it's true in battleships, and I think in some sense it's true in destroyers as well. So anyway, right now I'm chasing this guy down pretty aggressively. The reason I'm doing that is because I think we're going to win the game. I think given the fact that the enemy is all spread out around the map, our team is pretty much all concentrated in one area. Yes, we only have a 3-ship advantage right now, but given the way our teams are positioned, given how much health this Colorado is on, I'm really not anticipating that we're going to be able to throw this away. So I am aggressively pushing this guy, even though the Friedrich is still shooting me in the side. Like I said, I don't really care, because I have the hit points to take it. I don't think he's going to Citadel me from this angle, and even if he does, I don't think it's going to lose us the game. So now the rest of this game is pretty much just chase down the Gaida. So I'll fast forward a little bit through this part. But what I'm essentially just going to do here is just chase this guy down for a little bit. There's not really a whole lot to this, just chasing a destroyer around some islands. So while this is playing, really the big thing I want to highlight about this game is just the fact that I use my aggression as a battleship to be able to rack up a pretty huge score, as well as help my cruisers stay alive at the beginning of the game. And I wanted to contrast it with what the enemy team did. So if you'll, I'm going to slow it down a little bit again. So if you'll remember at the beginning of the game, and I pointed this out earlier, but you'll notice that at the beginning of the match, their battleships kind of hung back, and our battleships were playing more aggressively. So I was positioning myself right up in here. The Gdańsk now came up and joined me, and their battleships were all kind of back here. And you'll notice the difference in aggression. Obviously, we were more aggressive, and what that meant was that it meant that our I'm now being hydroed by the Gaida. And what that meant was that our cruisers were able to stay alive, and their cruisers all got killed because they played aggressively even though their battleships were playing passive. Okay, so I just want to highlight this. So you'll notice that as soon as I got hydroed, I started to slow down and turn, and because of that, I was able to actually duke the torps. So I reasoned that, okay, this guy's hydroing me, which means he knows I'm there. He spotted me, obviously. And what that means is he's probably going to be launching torpedoes. So I thought, all right, he's probably launched them as soon as I got spotted. So what that means, and he does it again, actually. I think I'm actually going to be able to dodge both of these. Yep, I managed to duke that entire spread. But anyway, what I reasoned is that, okay, he's launched torps. He will have been aiming them at where I was going. So what I should do is adjust my course, since that's what I do. The other thing, and this applies whenever you're trying to deal with a destroyer, what a lot of people will try and do when they're sailing into destroyer smoke is they'll try and kind of zigzag around, which really is the worst thing you can do. And the reason it's the worst thing you can do is because when you're zigzagging around, when you're trying to like serpentine to dodge torpedoes, you're actually making it a lot more likely that you're going to eat torps. And you'll notice the way I handled that was I just went straight bow in. I didn't turn, I didn't angle, I went straight in. And that's how you have to deal with destroyers in smoke, because it makes it way easier to dodge the torpedoes. So this Colorado's about to die, and with that, I hope you learned something from this game. I think it's a pretty good showcase of how you play battleships. And with that done, if you liked it, please give me a subscribe, and I'll see you next time.